couldn't see him. But that's where your stats come into play. You build up barriers of defense. You have different levels of defense in hardcore. You have barriers of defense. Number 1 should be your skill ability. Like your actual ability to play the game and to avoid being killed. Like your actual clicks, the actual use of your abilities. That's number 1. That's your first level of defense. That's your most important, in my opinion. Number 2 is the use of your skills and how your build is set up to be able to survive. That's number 2. That's your second level of defense. And that kind of fits into number 1, but it's different enough that it has its own level. And then the third level, to keep it simple, the third level is the actual stats of your gear itself. Usually that's the last resort. Usually that's like what prevents you from dying when something gets through the first 2 levels. Sometimes it's minor. Sometimes it's just like a couple of regular mobs just getting close enough to hit you once or twice, which, I mean, you can't avoid. That's going to happen. But, like, in a situation where this guy actually gets to charge me and hit me, you know, that's a breakdown of the first 2, either by my fault or there, but it's either my fault or he just happened to be just off screen where I couldn't see him. And then in that case, he gets through the first 2 levels, and then it's all about gear at that point. And you want to have as many layers of defense as possible. Like, you want each... It's not necessarily wanting as many layers as possible. It's about having your layers of defense as good as they can possibly be, so that it's so hard to get through the layers that they can never get to the point where they can kill you, or even put you in a situation in which they have the chance to kill you. These guys are actually pretty dangerous because they can keep you in spot. They can jail in Desecrator. Well, they can't jail... I mean, they can't jail Wrath, but... Let's see, they can jail me there. Yeah, in this battle, I'm just pretty much making sure that my Warcry is always up. Making sure my Rend is always up. You know, make my first 2 levels just so hard to get past that if something does actually get through and do damage to me, it's not going to be enough to kill me. But it's not about how many layers there are, because there's really only 3. You might be able to say 4, but there's really only 3, and it's a numbers game. In a lot of ways, it's a numbers game. I mean, your skill is the first level. That's absolutely true. Like, where you're actually clicking is the first level. Because ultimately you're controlling what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons why Nightmarish, especially in hardcore, can be very dangerous. Because it kind of takes that first level of control and takes it away from you. So you basically get jumped right into second level at that point. And that's your build and your skills. Like, that's your... So you have... Okay, so your second level... Like, if you get Nightmared, you're into your second level there. That means your skills and passives. So if you have like any kind of crowd control break or anything like that, then you can use it at that point. Oh, that's quite a few guys. Back up a little bit. Okay, just wanted to have enough to get Rend off, so... See, this battle is going to be very much about first level. Where I control here is going to be more of a determining factor than anything. So anyway, to talk about the third level again, third level is the stats on your gear. It's the stats on your gear, the stats on your character sheet, you know, passives. Your passive skills have a lot to do with it. The passive skills kind of sit in between 2 and 3, because they affect both. And to some extent, they even affect 1, but not nearly as much as other stuff. But I might have to cut this part out and put it up on YouTube or something, because I don't think people really think of it the way I do, especially for hardcore. And a lot of what I said applies directly to non-hardcore also, but it's not as important. I mean, it all applies exactly the same as it does in hardcore. It's just, it's not as important because the consequences are practically non-existent. So a lot of times you're kind of sloppy with 1 and 2 because you depend on 3. Because your 3 is better. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. For hardcore, usually your 1 is more important and a little bit better. Your 2 is a little bit more important in hardcore, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily better. But on 3, your gear is better in non-hardcore almost always. So you can't... In non-hardcore, people regularly just let stuff get to level 3 because their gear is so good. They don't care, because it doesn't matter. But in hardcore, if you routinely get to the position where stuff is getting to your level 3, you're gonna die.